Hey everybody, Off the Mic Wrestling Show YouTube channel reacting to NXT. Man, we're winding down the clock here on USA. Only a handful of shows until they go to the CW. This is a pretty solid show tonight. So it really starts off, really a big story on this show was Trick Williams and Pete Dunne. So Ethan Page comes out and after Trick Williams starts the show with his whoop that trick, he's just so great. I love Trick Williams. Ethan Page comes out, and basically we're starting to set the stages for what's going to ultimately be, I think, Ethan Page and Trick Williams for the championship. And it's looks like it's going to be on that CW show, which they're going to load up in Chicago. So Pete Dunne and Trick are getting into a fight, and literally this stemmed through the first hour of this show, which was really well executed to continue this. And again, I will say this, I said this on the Raw post show, Pete Dunne is incredible, man. Like, for a guy who is, kind of been meandering around, been trying to distance his way from that nickname, which has been a really neat little story, he's effectively gotten into two really heat-filled feuds. One with Sheamus, a seasoned veteran on the main roster, and one with an up-and-coming rising prospect in Trick Williams. Two completely different guys to work with, and he's managed to make them both really, really interesting. And to do one on Monday and one on Tuesday, go from Denver, Colorado, all the way out to Orlando, Florida to do that is just a testament. I don't think Pete Dunne is getting nearly enough credit for the work that he has been able to do. And I hate saying this, I love Tyler Bate to death. His injury was a blessing in disguise for Pete Dunne, because we are getting to see the real bruiserweight again. We have missed him for a long, long time. Vince McMahon kind of took it away, giving him that godforsaken nickname. Don't worry, Pete Dunne, if you're watching, I'm not going to say it because then you will want to come and beat the shit out of me. So we'll leave that there. But this is just really good stuff right off the bat. Then we get a triple threat tag match to determine the number one contenders for the NXT tag team titles. It's the Rascals, Trey Miguel and Zach Wentz, Gallus, Mark Coffey, and Wolfgang, and Hank Walker and Tank Ledger, who are just a load of fun, man. So this was a lot of fun, a chaotic finish with, just a lot of stuff going on at the end, a lot of interwoven storylines. You had Gallows and Anderson getting involved with Hank and Tank, who they have beef with. Javon Evans has beef with Gallus, so he gets involved. And it all leads to the finish where the Rascals win, and we're getting Trey and Wentz against Axiom and Fraser next week on NXT. Holy shit, that's going to be an awesome match. I can't wait to see that. I would imagine Wes Lee would factor into the equation and continue his feud with the Rascals and screw his old buddies out of the tag team titles, because I don't see a third tag team title change in the span of a month. I just don't see that happening. So that was a good opener. Oro Mensah takes on Lexis King. Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson are a lot of fun. Really good additions. Like, again, this women's division, like, Lash and Jakara don't have to wrestle as much because this women's division is so deep, but when they get the opportunity to do so, they're really good. So Oro Mensah versus Lexis King, the former Brian Pillman Jr., who had to actually answer questions for some reason that some people were saying, yeah, he was better used in AEW. No, he's got a much more interesting character on NXT. So towards the end of this match, it really got personal, where Alexis King talked shit about Oro's father to his face, and it led to Lexis just rolling up Oro for the win and put his feet on the ropes. So that was interesting. Good for Lexis King to get a win. Oro Mensah had his nice little push after Ethan Page, but let's get it real. Like, Oro, like, they need Noam Dar back in that group, and I don't know how long it's going to be. He's significantly injured and still trying to rehab. But Metaphor is a really entertaining group. But Lexis King, nice win for him. Oba Femi then confronts the family backstage, Adriana Rizzo, Stax, and Luca Crucifino. And so this is a line that really got a lot of people fired up, and I can kind of see where it was going, especially with a lot of the news going around about domestic violence with a lot of people involved in wrestling. So Adriana Rizzo says, Oba, yeah, you'll lose that title to Tony soon. So then Oba says, yeah, those are big words coming from a small woman. He says, in some cultures, women are meant to be seen, not heard. Ooh. And that pissed Tony D'Angelo off. And he said, in my culture, people who talk to women like that get smacked in the mouth. So he says, yeah, Stacks is going to take care of you tonight. So that sets up a match later in the night. So then Charlie Dempsey, Miles Bourne, and Ren Sinclair are backstage. So they're talking to Gallus, who are just pissed off. Gallus talks trash to Ren. Ren gets into Joe Coffey's face. Charlie is basically like saying, "Hey, Charlie Dempsey, who's kind of bland, and it's weird considering his dad's William Regal, but this Ren Sinclair's addition with her just being very presumptuous and like, you know, trying to be, she's very excited to be in like something, and like she's trying to make all these challenges and, you know, try to make a lot of people happy, including her new group. She's added a lot to this group and made it really, really entertaining. So that's a credit to her. And it's really unlocked something in Miles Bourne and also in Charlie Dempsey. So then we get Tatum Paxley versus Rosemary from TNA, who's been on the last couple shows. A quick little match. Tatum Paxley hits her cool-looking finish for the win. This didn't last long. And after the match, Rosemary and Wendy Chu get in on Paxley, but out comes Lyra Valkyria. If you remember, back in the old days of NXT, a really weird, like, you know, buddy angle that they had where they're like, Tatum was like showing a lot of affection towards Lyra because she was the champion and then attacked her. It was really weird. But Lyra comes out and makes the save. She hugs Tatum. They're back together. It was a really nice feel-good moment for the NXT crowd who really has followed this story. So then we get Sarah Schreiber interviewing Pete Dunne about what he meant by figure it out from earlier in the night. Dunne said Trick needs to figure out that actions have consequences. So then Trick shows up, both men brawl. Ava's right in the middle of all this chaos and basically says, yeah, I don't care that this is the main event. Get to the ring now. We're doing this now. And Ethan Page just sheepishly walks around. Man, yeah, you can't get control of your show. Again, I love this part of the show that they made this really heat-filled angle with, because the men's division, at least in the singles capacity, is not in a really good spot right now. You've got Obafemi, who's a dominant champion. There's entertaining characters, but you've got Ethan Page as the champion. He just beat Joe Hendry. You've got Pete Dunne, who's on the main roster. We all know this is going back to Trick, so at least carrying this really heat-filled feud between two guys who have been hating each other for the last few weeks, carrying this through the first hour of the show in multiple segments was a really smart idea. Then we get, this is a really cool announcement. On next week's NXT, which is going to be WWE week, where all three shows are going to be on the same network on USA, Jordynne Grace, the TNA Knockouts champion, is making history. She is defending the Knockouts championship in an open challenge on NXT next week. That'll be really cool. I'm curious to see who will answer that challenge. But that's awesome. And it'll be really great to see Jordynne Grace on NXT television next week. So then it's Trick Williams and Pete Dunne. These guys brawled for about 10 minutes, and then near the end, they get out to the crowd. They're up on the apron in the setup in the Performance Center, and Dunne hit Trick and took himself out too with a Russian leg sweep through the announce table and the referee. While this was going on, it got to a count of 10. Alicia Taylor, who was the ring announcer, said it was a double count out. So we don't have a winner. They continue to brawl with security just trying to pull both these guys apart. It gets crazy. It's insane. Man, that was an awesome way to kill a lot of the first hour of the show with your biggest star in NXT and Trick Williams and Pete Dunne, who is on a little bit of a resurgence here, like I said, with two really good feuds going on right now. Then we get a Ridge Holland promo. This was awesome, by the way, establishing why he turned heel. He talked about Chase University, bringing him back from his lowest point, restoring his confidence, gave him a sense of belonging. He then said, why would he destroy Mr. Chase and put him in the hospital? Ooh, they used hospital on WWE television. That's a big indication Vince McMahon doesn't book these shows anymore. He said Chase failed him. He said they were champions, but they did what Chase U does, win the big one and then failed. He said that he brought them to prominence, new look, new classroom. He said, Duke Hudson always criticized me for every move that I made, called him a smug and arrogant asshole. That was bleeped out. I love the way that they kind of, make these promos feel kind of real. He said that Riley Osborne has no shame. talked about helping Chase and Hudson getting a title shot due to his help. Then they sent him home at Heatwave, and they failed to get the job done. Ridge said he finally became a champion. It got ripped away due to mediocrity. He said NXT is going to get the man that he fought so hard not to be. Ridge, he said, step-by-step destruction of Chase U begins next week, and from then he's going to love every second of it. He leaves the classroom because he was in the Chase U classroom, and he stepped on Duke Hudson's MVP trophy. So very powerful promo from Ridge Holland. He's, listen, man, you can criticize Ridge for some of his wrestling ability. He's gotten a lot better, and this arc that he's been on since going back to NXT, trying to figure out who he is, and going into Chase U, and this made a lot of sense. It wasn't just like some spur of a moment heel turn. This was just like, man, you guys, I did everything for you. This had built up for a while. I didn't see it coming because I thought they were going to go the other way and keep Ridge in the group, but then them basically blindsiding us and basically saying, yeah, Ridge, turn him heel. And you know what? It's going to be easy to boo this guy because, like I said, fair or not fair, and they fed into this a lot, that Ridge has hurt a lot of people. Ridge has been a problem. So I like that they're putting him up against an overact in that building, like Chase U, stomping on the MVP trophy. Obviously going to lead to a match with Duke Hudson down the road. I think it's going to be next week, so that's really cool. So we get Sean Spears talking to Brooks Jensen. I like what they're doing with Spears here, and this seemingly weird alliance with Brooks. And so basically he's basically thanking him for saving him from Aegis Anafe and Malik Blade last week. Dion Lennox, who was reading in the background, comes in and basically tells Brooks that, hey, he's gaslighting you. That's called psychological manipulation. And Brooks is looking like, what are you talking about? So an interesting arc built in the lower mid card. I like what they're doing with Sean Spears. Give the man his respect. The guy's always been really good. And when he went over to NXT, everybody was like, it's not. Listen, all of these people who are former AEW people at least have a purpose in NXT. Ethan Page is the champion. Lexis King, the former Brian Pillman Jr., is getting involved in interesting storylines. And then you've obviously got Sean Spears. He was in a championship match. He's the reason let's call it what it is. He's the reason Trick Williams isn't the champion right now. That whole part of the finish, and I wish they would tap into more of that. But Sean Spears has kind of distanced himself away from the top of the card. But this is who he is at this stage of this career. And I love the fact that he's kind of giving back to that new generation and interacting with somebody like a Brooks Jensen, who has had a really interesting, storyline going. Javon Evans versus Joe Coffey. I haven't talked about this a lot on this channel. I fucking love Javon Evans. I love this kid. This kid is 20 years old. He says he gets bouncy all the time. He's not kidding. This guy is just a fucking joy to watch. He hit a tope early on in this match where he almost went over into Vic Joseph's lap. And Vic Joseph almost said, holy shit. And he said, yeah, I got knocked down my candy. So this match didn't last long. Gallus is trying to gang up, but out comes Cedric Alexander to make the save because he's now in NXT. And Evans takes out all three of Gallus members with a flying dive. He then hits his corkscrew little moonsault to the side, a little splash on Joe Coffey to get the win. This was only a couple minutes, but hell yeah, I'm all about putting Cedric Alexander and Javon Evans together, because Cedric Alexander has been trying to figure out who he is for a long time. A high flyer, very entertaining. Like 10 or so years ago, he was Javon Evans. And I think this could be such a great pairing for these two. Put them as a tag team. Load up your tag team division. I am all about Javon Evans, the young OG, teaming with Cedric Alexander. That would be a freaking phenomenal tag team for this group. I can't wait to see where that goes. Tatum and Lyra basically have their little powwow in the back. Lyra told Tatum that Tatum should have made more friends, not make toy friends, and sort of insinuating Tatum's really interesting gimmick. So they hug. They're excited to see each other. I would assume that's going to be a regular thing. Lyra's going to be in NXT at least for a little bit. She hasn't really done a whole hell of a lot since her little run in the Queen of the Ring tournament. But but she now is getting a little bit more involved with Pure Fusion Collective. I like to see them doing more with her, but if she's not going to have anything big, again, like something similar to like a Pete Dunne, maybe having 2 compelling feuds on 2 different shows, and obviously they didn't really tackle that much into this Tatum Paxley thing. They had Tatum Paxley in a 3-way match with her and Roxanne Perez, and then Lyra gets called up to the main roster, and basically they really hadn't, gotten back into that. So they're friends again, which might be a little weird, but it was a feel-good moment. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. So then Sarah Schreiber's interviewing Ava. She announces that Pete Dunne and Trick Williams are facing each other next week in a last man standing match. Winner gets Ethan Page for the NXT Championship and on that CW debut in Chicago. So that'll be freaking great. I'm looking forward to that. Then the D'Angelo family and Oba Femi are out there. So it's Oba Femi versus Stax. Stax got a good showing in this match. It was a quick match, but Stax got a good showing. Oba, again, like I said, he's gotten to sell a lot more in these matches, which has really shown his development. This guy's just a freak of nature. And it's just so Stax goes for a dive, but his knee buckled after a dodge. Oba tossed Stax across the ring. He hits the pop-up powerbomb for the win. Man, I freaking love Oba Femi, man. This guy is just, for the ability that he's been able to show, the raw ability, and even some promos, even that there was a little bit of a controversial line earlier on in the show. This was really, he's just fucking great. I love this guy. I just don't know where the fuck, they're clearly hinting at something with Tony D'Angelo, and Tony D'Angelo just looks scared to death that like he's met his match as the Don of NXT, and maybe that's where this is all leading, and maybe this is the end of Tony D'Angelo in NXT, because I just don't know what the hell there is for him to do anymore. The family's an entertaining act, but it almost feels like they're at the end of their rope, and maybe they go to the main roster and they figure out something for them to do there. But I don't know where they fit in on the main roster, because Tony D, he's already challenged for the NXT title this year. He's already challenged for the North American title this year. He's won the Heritage Cup. Like, I just don't know what more there is for him. So they're clearly stretching this out with Oba Femi a little bit more to give a little bit more meat on the bone. Again, bring in some TNA people. I keep saying bring Moose in. I know Moose has got a title opportunity against Nick and Emmett at the next TNA pay-per-view, but why the hell not? Why not at least give that an opportunity? So it'll be interesting to see where things go with Oba Femi. So then we get Carmen Petrovich and Brinley Reese. They're chatting backstage about Idris, because Brinley has been friendly with Idris Anafe and Malik Blade. They were kind of a group together. So Ashanti the Adonis, remember when him and Cedric were supposed to be a team? I guess that just died. So his gimmick now is that he's just vibing on every woman in NXT. So he comes up with a rose, saying, "Yeah, Brinley, I know if you're depressed, you can cry on my shoulder. I'll give you a shoulder to cry on." So Eddie Thorpe, who's got this whole thing that he's got like a bunch of girl friends who are platonic, so which is kind of neat and a little bit refreshing. So so Eddie Thorpe, I guess we're gonna do something with him and Ashanti the Adonis. So then we get Javon Evans backstage. So he's talking to Ren Sinclair, and Ren Sinclair's asking a bunch of questions about, why should you get to challenge for the Heritage Cup? So Evans says, "Yeah, this sounds like a job interview. I've never had a job before," which is funny. Javon's just so pure, wholesome and pure. It's great. So Ren said it looks like Evans deserves a cup match. Evans runs away happy. He just yells, "Ava!" And so Charlie Dempsey is pissed off that, hey, we talked about this. Like, you're not supposed to be giving away title matches. And so Miles Bourne is standing there the whole time, because the whole thing is that he's deaf in one ear and he had his headphones in the other one. He's basically like, "Oh, yeah, Miles, what the hell were you doing?" It's like, "Yeah, I didn't hear anything." So again, this no quarter catch crow shouldn't be as entertaining as it is, but Ren Sinclair has really unlocked something in this group that has made them infinitely more interesting. Charlie Dempsey has shown at least a semblance of charisma. He should really talk to his dad, because his dad is honestly one of the more entertaining and underrated professional wrestlers in the history of the game in William Regal. Then we get another short match, Jada Parker versus Jasmine Nix. They are now called the Fatal Influence, Fallon Henley, Jasmine Nix, and JC Jane. This is basically Toxic Attraction all over again. Which is interesting. So Jada catches Nyx late in this match with a Samoan drop. She rallies with some shoulder tackles. Parker hits Nyx with her draping bonsai drop. Nyx gets a 2 count on an inside cradle. Nyx misses her kick, and Parker gets her hypnotic. This was over pretty quickly. Jada Parker's a lot of fun. She's a lot of fun. She's gotten over with the crowd pretty significantly. She's not just a gif. She's not just a meme because of her figure. She really can work. She's really come into her own, and she did really well in that championship match on Sunday at No Mercy. So Parker gets to after the match. Fatal Influence gets the attack in on her. So then Parker managed to fend them off a little bit, but then the numbers game gets on her. We get the Pele kick from Nyx to finish off that segment. So before we get to the main event segment, which is Roxanne Perez basically addressing the future and her title win, which, to be honest with you, I know a lot of people were mad that didn't main event. Look, Joe Hendry was making history. He was always main eventing that show. But I'm glad that Roxanne got the main event segment here, and they smartly used the heat between Trick and Pete to extend this out another week to get to that show on the CW to determine who the number one contender is, stretch this feud out another week, and give Roxanne Perez the main event segment. So women's locker room, we have a whole, like, it seems like the whole women's locker room is like literally crowded together in one place. The Fatal Influence, they show up to gloat. Kalani Jordan's talking about NXT as the best women's division because of what they do in the ring, not things like what Fatal Influence is doing. And so JC Jane scoffs and the trio walks away. So she was basically talking with Lola Vice. So clearly they're building some sort of thing where these establishment divas, or these women in Fallon Henley and JC Jane and Jasmine Nyx, are kind of against the rest of the women's locker room. So that's going to be an interesting feud. I would imagine it would play into something with Kalani Jordan, because they're leaning into the fact that Jasmine Nyx is a rookie, but she's one that caters to them. And the whole issue that Fatal Influence has is they're against rookies. So this is clearly leading to something with Kalani Jordan moving forward. So that'll be interesting. So then Duke Hudson shows, there's a tweet shown from him talking about how offended he was by what Ridge did, and that he's going to win for Thea, he's going to win for Riley, win for Chase U and Mr. Chase. So it's going to be Duke Hudson versus Ridge Holland next week on NXT. That'll be great. As I said, Axiom and Frazier versus the Rascals for the tag team titles. Dempsey versus Javon Evans for the Heritage Cup. Ridge Holland versus Duke Hudson. Trick Williams versus Pete Dunne in a last man standing match. And then, of course, Jordan Grace open challenge for the TNA Knockouts Championship, which will be really cool. And main event segment is Roxanne Perez. You know what? I'm glad that I got some time here to really, get this out there. I think the world of this girl, man. I said it on the No Mercy post show. What she has been able to do, and I hope people recognize this in the long run, because the title reign is coming to an end really soon, based off what we saw at No Mercy and based off what we saw in this segment, which I'll talk about in a second. She's 22 years old, and she has carried this division since WrestleMania weekend when she won it Stand and Deliver, and for 4.5, 5 months, she has walked around with that championship. She has developed her character very well as kind of like thinking everybody's against her. Her promos have gotten better. She has elevated women in that division, like a Lola Vice, into having her best match ever. A Jada Parker having her best match ever. Thea Hale on NXT TV at Great American Bash is one of the best women's matches I've seen this year. And those are two girls in their early 20s. Roxanne Perez, if she's doing this at 22 years of age, I am terrified of what she's going to look like in 5 years, because it's going to run out here. But I hope that people understand that just because it's not Shayna Baszler in 400 days as a women's champion, it's not Asuka 500 days having to relinquish the title. It's not either one of those, but this is one of the best NXT Women's Championship reigns I've ever seen in my life. And think about the women who have held that championship. Sasha Banks, Bayley, Becky Lynch held that last year. Tiffany Stratton's held it. Charlotte's held it. So Io Sky, like Asuka, Shayna Baszler, Kairi Sane. So many great women have held that championship. And I, honest to God, truly believe this, that what Roxanne Perez has been able to do, just because of all of the title defenses with how relatively new her competition was, and considering how young she is and how gifted she is at what she does, this is one of the best title runs I've seen, not just for a woman in NXT, just in NXT in general. This is fucking fantastic. So she taunts the crowd about breaking Asuka and Io Sky's PLE records, talks about how even though people on the main roster can't keep stock, they cannot stop talking about her. She gives credit to Jada Parker and says she's the future of the division. But Perez said she proved what she can do, can't be taught, produced, or touched. She talked about how she is the fantasy match constant. She said nobody's going to take the title away from her. Nobody can take the title away from her. Nobody will. She said it doesn't matter if you're the hottest prospect, former champion, or the hottest free agent from Japan. She said when the smoke clears, it'll only be her holding the title in the air. The lights go out, and a neat little misdirect here. Chelsea Green shows up. It was a little bit weird because Chelsea is one of the people that Roxanne beat. So she jokes about how Roxanne was expecting someone else. She insulted the crowd for smelling. She then talked about how she's adored by the WWE universe. Big Chelsea chant from the people at the Performance Center. Chelsea said she'd do anything for her fans except the creepy ones. She said that caused her to intervene. She then said none of the GMs can stop her from being the number one contender. And then the lights go out again, and out comes Giulia, this really super cool entrance in the dark. They call it, I think they're calling it the Beautiful Nightmare. I forgot what they call it. It was a really neat nickname. The aura you can already see is just oozing off of this woman, and we've been waiting so long for this to happen. And just seeing her come out, she's being presented like a star. She walks and carries herself like a star. So Giulia gets in the ring. Chelsea gets in her face. Giulia blocks a slap and hits a high knee. Giulia gets on the mic and basically says, "Me, you, CW," and that essentially confirms what we already knew. That I honestly thought they were going to do this at Halloween Havoc, but hey, you got a big debut show in Chicago with CM Punk on it. You might as well do maybe your biggest match that you could possibly do at that point, at this point, and that is Giulia versus Roxanne Perez. That's the best match you can do. That should main event that show. I like the fact that they didn't get physical here. They had Giulia keep it really simple. You have Chelsea Green take the heat, and she's really good at, playing that role of getting her ass kicked and, being obnoxious, being that heel. So this was a good idea. Listen, I think Giulia should win. It would really surprise me. All due respect to Roxanne Perez, it would really surprise me if they had Giulia lose her first match. So I could honestly see them doing a couple of these. But you also have Delta out there. You've got Stephanie Vaquer still out there. This women's division is fucking bananas. And it's one of the reasons why I think at some point you have got to get Roxanne Perez up to the main roster, because there's nothing left for her to do in NXT, and there's so many women in this system that they need to be showcased. And Roxanne is good enough to handle her own on the main roster. Cora Jade's going to come back at any time too. So, and maybe there's something there between those two. Cora and Roxanne have been linked at the hip since Roxanne got to NXT. So this was a great follow-up to No Mercy. Sadly, no Joe Hendry, but it seems like that time for NXT NA is done. But we're getting Jordan Grace next week. We still got Rosemary on this show. The Rascals were still on this show. Shawn Michaels is cooking, people. Man, he puts on the chef's hat every single week, and he finds a way to make these entertaining shows. So, we'll have an AEW Dynamite reaction tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Very exciting time now, at least for AEW in terms of All Out. I'm really interested, and there will be a primer that I'll release. There's good matches on these shows, but there's just no emotional investment. And the match card is admittedly awesome for All Out, but a lot of these, there's just not a lot of story and a lot of emotional attachment. And that's the price you pay for having a pay-per-view 2 weeks after your biggest show of the year. So So yeah, like, share, and subscribe here on the channel. Follow me at Off the Mic 28 and follow the show at OT Mic Wrestling. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.